Good morning, everyone. Yesterday, Hemingway Jones, who you see pictured there, uh, and posted a video that he and I made last month, or earlier this month. And I thought I would answer any of the questions that you folks had. So the interview took place there. And now I'm going to make my way, if I can, without tripping and falling, over to the corner that is my little pen corner. I know all about it. I can't wait to hear your responses about how tidy my house is. It's just the way it is. So, here we go. Hi, Kim. So, I will see if I have any new followers. Kim is an old follower, and Kim texted me saying, now that I become popular, will I have time for someone like Kim? Well, of course, I'll always have time for you. And I'm not entirely positive that the followers of Hemingway Jones will come in droves to me. They may watch one or two videos and realize that I'm way too disorganized for them, which is entirely possible because I'm disorganized enough for just me, and I can see how other people might find it equally hard to watch. One of the things that I need to do, and I'll try to do maybe in the coming days, is to organize my playlists better so that the videos I create are in easier to find playlists, because I don't only talk about pens. I talk about other things too. I do drawings with people. I have live shows. I interview people about pens. I show how to repair pens. I show my collection of pens. So I'm all over the map. Yes, Kim just said his viewers are used to scheduled releases. I know that there are some people like Wesky Squirrel who always does a weekly pens in use thing. And Hemingway has a live thing he does once a month or once a week or something or other. I don't know. When it comes to scheduling anything, it's hard for me to do that. I don't have a sense of time in that way. I also might not be in the mood to broadcast something, and so I won't if I don't want to. So, but I will try to maybe come up with a time or a day where I'll always do something or try to do something. Maybe I could do live drawing things on Wednesdays and maybe do live pen things on Thursdays. I have no idea. But what I thought I'd first do is respond to the questions and comments that people made on Hemingway Jones's live stream that I had with him. So one of the things that you wrote to me privately, Kim, was you thought I was nervous. And in a way I was, because I never really talked to him before in person. So I know how he presents himself on screen, but I don't know whether a lot of that is due to editing, where he'll remove the hesitations and the ums and ahs and stuff like that that might happen during a recording. So I was I'm not that kind of a person. You see what you get when you see my videos. And I was under the impression that probably he'd fix all of those parts. I don't think he did, which was fine. Um, but that was one of the things I was a little bit nervous about, was not so much that he would edit, but I had to edit my own vocabulary, because I tend to do a lot of swearing when I can't find something, or I can't think of something, or I forget something. I'll use a choice word or two, and I know that his audience probably doesn't hear them come out of his mouth. So I thought, well, I need to sort of make sure I'm very careful about what I'm saying. So that's addressing your comment. So, and I also thought that maybe I did email him a history of what I did, so he sort of knew what I did for the movies. So he, even though he knew the answers, he asked them, but he knew what answers I had for them. So he chose to follow my script that I gave him, which was nice. Swearing makes you laugh. Teresa, there was one comment I got on one of my videos saying she was very upset. She said, "It took you until 11 minutes to say, 'God damn it.'" And I thought that was very funny. Like, they look forward to that. Hello, good morning. Will. So anyway, I suspect some of you folks might be new to my channel, having been introduced to me via Hemingway Jones on the video he put out yesterday. And most of the time, this is what you see. You see my drawing table, you see my pen, my hands. Sometimes they're covered in ink. I think they're relatively clean here. And you see me drawing or fixing a pen or breaking a pen, sometimes by accident, of course. Sometimes I actually do it on purpose. If I have to take out a lever box from a Waterman that's broken elsewhere, I'll take my pliers and just crack the barrel. Will Hodges is talking about when I use the F word followed by the me word, and which happens quite often. Anyway, so I'm gonna go to Hemingway Jones's comment section and read what the comments were and respond to each of those. So Tony said, it was a terrific interview. Thank you, Mr. Gustafson. And he thanks Hemingway Jones for doing it. And he talked about the writer, whose name is Tony, who must be my age, or give or take 3 or 4 years. I'm 68. I'll be 69 in a month. How is that possible? I thought I would never live past 40. Anyway, he talks about the first fountain pen he had was the Sheaffer cartridge pen, which was also my first fountain pen. We didn't call them fountain pens then, we called them cartridge pens. They cost $1.99 or $1.95, and the cartridges, I think a box of 6 of them or 8 of them, cost 59 cents maybe, I forget. And they were perfectly legitimate, perfectly good fountain pens, and they write every bit as good as 90% of the modern fountain pens you get that cost $100. So anyway, there's that question. He now has 200 fountain pens, and he loves fountain pens. Well, maybe, Tony, you can be my guest here, and we can talk about the old days. Okay, so Hemingway responded to almost all of the comments by saying thank you for uh, your comment and stuff like that. I'm not as diligent about responding to every single person. That I don't have a lot of comments really. Most of them are factual ones where maybe I'm getting something wrong, uh, date wise on a pen or something like that. So Todd Merrill is always one to take out of his memory banks the actual brand or model of pen I'm using. So that stuff was good. Uh, Will Hodge also just commented live that we share a birthday month. So he was born in June, but I'm a little bit older than he is. Okay, vintage writing. Okay, I'm delightful that you discovered Pierre. Hi, Pierre. I hope you can take him up on his offer to show you his studio, his pens, and everything else. It'll blow your mind. That was written by Rob Morrison, and Rob and I used to run the Boston Pen Show, and he has been a longtime friend and longtime customer of my pens, and I buy pens from him, and we trade pens back and forth. He lived maybe half a mile away from me or a mile away from me, so whenever I would go to a pen show, he'd insist I come to his house and show him all of the stuff I got so he could buy them before they became absorbed. He was always afraid that this pen that I might sell today, if I had it in my hand for more than 5 minutes, it would be in my collection. So he always tried to, it would be absorbed into my collection. So he would always try to get pens from me before I became too attached to them. Rob has a magnificent, he doesn't really have a YouTube presence as much as he should. He makes YouTube videos to help sell the pens he sells on eBay, and his pens are photographed beautifully. They're described down to the last millimeter of detail and more. He shows how the pens write. So, and he is really one of the funniest people on this planet. He's very, very funny and very smart. And when it comes to pens, he has eyeballs and a brain that sees things that I don't see. And I want to have him as a guest here where we talk about the Moore Pen Company. He's rather fond of Moores, so I like them too. They're never a go-to pen for me, but I see why he likes them. They're a pen that I occasionally just like to look at because they're so beautifully proportioned and beautifully designed, but their nibs were quite often not very good. They would crack in the back where they were put into the pen. I don't know why they couldn't make a slightly stronger nib. Okay, so that was his comment. My goodness, I met Pierre once in a local pen group meeting and he fixed my pen. Okay, this is a local pen collector. Actually, she only lives maybe 3 miles from me, but I learned about her through a Facebook group called Boston Area Pen Enthusiasts. And she had a modern-ish, no, she wasn't modern at all. It was a Conway Stewart. And the nib had displaced itself. So I said, and I wasn't sure it needed a new sack. It was a vintage pen from the 40s. So I said, put the nib in water, fill a glass of water so that the the water would be this high off the pen from there to there, so that in case I needed to put a new sack on it, it had time to sort of soak the water to soak in and make it easier for me to take the pen apart. So anyway, she showed up at the meeting, and I took her up here to the studio, and I took out the pen, the nib, and I took out the feed, and everything looked fine. The sack was fine. I didn't have to replace the sack, and I realigned it so that it wasn't twerked. I could have told her how to do it probably over the phone or over FaceTiming. You know, I can sometimes help the stewardess land the 747 when the pilots are killed. That, I mean, I don't know how to do that, obviously, but I can tell people how to fix their pen over the phone usually, if it's nib alignment. Okay. Debbie Podgorski, great interview. What an experience to write for a movie. It's fun. I enjoyed it. The best part of going to these sets or being on location was seeing just how much work goes into making a movie. And they, turn on the smoke machine to, I don't know, to help hide the wrinkles on my hands. I don't know. They added the smoke machine quite often in one of the shows I did, even though there was no fire anywhere. They just tried to make the house, the big house, it was at this big mansion, maybe appear older or something. I don't know how they did that. It just created a fog in the room, which was an interesting effect. I'm sure that all the carcinogens that are in the smoke are going to lead me to an early grave. But anyway, it's been fun. I was credited as a reenactor in one job I did, but I don't think I was been credited for other things. I essentially create props, and if they film my hand actually creating a prop, I guess I'm still a prop. Okay. Someone says that was really fascinating. Just Celia said that. Jonathan said the same thing. Another fun, interesting interview. I learned what the word paraff was. Okay, the paraff was a word that Hemingway Jones didn't know either. And I only learned it from a pen collector friend of mine who also collected autographs. And he taught me what it was called and also what it's for. So here's John Hancock's signature. Oops, something like that. This part is called a paraff, P-A-R-A-P-H, paraff. And what this was not John Hancock or anyone that uses a paraff saying, I'm really important, or aren't I swell, aren't I swanky, aren't I talented, aren't I special. That's not what it's for. It was very easy, evidently, for forgers to be able to do this, do the signature. This was very hard for forgers to do well. So this was the 18th century's version or even before, version of two-step authentication. So John Hancock, in the Declaration of Independence, or whatever the heck it was that he signed, he was saying to King George, this is in fact me. If you win, you can hang me from the highest yardarm. So that's what the paraf meant. It says, I'm really me. The oversigned, the name above, is in fact the person you think it is. Evidently, it was not to it was to thwart. It was to make. It was very hard for someone to forge this. So it's probably the speed at which it was written. It has to be done very quickly. Now, if you look at John Hancock's 10 of John Hancock's signatures, each one of these things is going to be different, I'm sure. So why can't I just sort of, he goes swish, 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 and makes a circle in 2 lines. Why can't that just be, any way I can make that, you would think would work perfectly well. But anyway, I don't know what that's what it was used for anyway, to thwart forgeries and to do the 2-step authentication idea. Okay. Stories are fascinating. How he acquired his first fountain pen. This is Teresa, who's watching me live now, I think. Are you still here, Teresa? Her comment was, my stories are fascinating. First fountain pens and how he prepped for the costume. Yes. Do I still have that Eversharp with the replacement nib? The pen the first pen that I bought from Fanny Friedman was an Eversharp Skyline nib, or I'm sorry, Eversharp adjustable nib, which was missing its adjuster. So it had 2 slits in the gold that looked like that. And then it also had 2 slits cut up here, which I'd never seen before and I've never seen since. But what those 2 slits did and what these 2 slits did without the adjuster is to make this thing really, really flexible. And I went over a bump, hit a bump, snag or something, and cracked that tine. I don't have that nib any longer. But I did show this to a couple of people that create their own nibs or modify nibs to make them flexible. And I said, well, try that. Try adding a extra slit right there. And then one's down there. Okay. Thank you, Pierre N. Hemingway, says MASH. Great interview. In the subtle music bed. I don't know what you're talking about. The subtle music. The subtle music bed is brilliant. What was he talking about? Maybe music was coming from Hemingway's side. There was a little bit of delay in looking at the video. There's some areas where the sound of my voice was not as clear as it could have been. I wasn't using microphone or fancy earphones or anything. I was just talking into the iPad that was 3 feet away from me. So I don't think there was anything musical being played at my end, but there could have been. The Eversharp pen body, I might have still. It was not much of a pen. It was an Eversharp Symphony pen. in burgundy, and I think the chrome cap had a little bit of brassing on it, which didn't bother me, but it's just what I remember it having. So I probably still have that pen somewhere. But it wasn't the pen itself. Once the nib was broken, the pen was not making me happy. Okay, that was cool. Enter the theme. The more you know. I know Pierre, says Wolf. Wolf something witch. I know Pierre. I don't know he was in or his handwriting the movie star fame. I'm glad you finally interviewed the one and only Pierre. Loud applause. Says Wolf. Wolf something witch. I don't know who that is. I'll have to look at her icon later. There was only one thing wrong with the movie. Neither Hemingway or I had watched the movie. The says Scribe Samples. I thought that Hemingway had seen the movie. Seems to me he said he had seen it. But maybe he said he hadn't in the interview. I can't remember that part. I'm not good on going to modern movies. I usually wait till I can watch them in the privacy of my own house on my iPad. Going to a movie theater. One of the reasons I hate going to movie theaters is you have to sit through those awful trailers for the new movies that are coming out, and each new movie is dumber than the one before, and it just infuriates me. The end. Okay, great topic. I really enjoy your content. Here this guy, Guilty Hedonist, described Hemingway's, he called it interrupting. I think it was more Hemingway had a thought of everything he wanted to say and keep the interview, keep the thing within a certain time limit. So that's why he may have kept moving me forward, which is fine. Someone says, in college, I would often use calc prof, calculus professor. In college, I would often use the Rapidograph or Mars Technical pen, usually size 0 or 1. I loved those pens. I used them all through high school and 3 of the 4 years I was in college before I learned about fountain pens. And I don't know how I managed to live with those awful pens. They made a very fine line, and they were ink, which was fine. I guess I understand why I did it. They just, they were messy and sloppy, and it was like writing while you were in a straitjacket compared to writing with this. You know, when I'm writing with a fountain pen where I can move my hand and there's no constraint, there's no nothing. It just does what I want it to do. Whereas a Rapidograph technical pen where you had to hold them sort of straight up and down. It was like being in a straitjacket. So Teresa says, oh, Hemingway added some jazz music to the background. Maybe that's it. Okay. Teresa Harris talks about the people at the theater are rude. They're using their phones and rattling their popcorn bags. I once went to an opera in Minneapolis, the opera Thais by Jules Massenet, and Beverly Sills was the soprano, and Cheryl Milnes, I think, was the baritone, and I had almost the last row, right by next to the doors going to the auditorium level, not the balcony, but the auditorium. And my parents were there, and a friend from college was there, and the usherette behind me was unwrapping the loudest candy wrappers, hard candy wrappers, crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. Just, I finally had to shush her after glaring at her forever. You should do more writing with Peer. This is addressed to Hemingway, saying, I simply love the guy. Says, oh, that's Kim. That's Kim saying this. I did create a video once for Hemingway. He talked about making the letter D, the uppercase letter D, and how he didn't like it, or how, I don't know, something was wrong with his uppercase letter D. So I made a video just about how to make the letter D for him. And I think it would be fun. I would like to, I'd like to do a side-by-side with him, either on camera or in person. I think that I might be able to actually give him, or really anyone, some advice. Whether it's going to be taken or not, I don't know. I once met in person, spent a good, almost a week with Pens in Use, Wasky Squirrel. And he, no matter what pen is in his hand, he uses the same muscles in his fingers and his arm to make the lines. And I would tell him, I say, now, Wasky, you're missing out on a big chunk of what the pen that you have in your hand can do. You're pressing down more than you need to make it work. You're also not pressing down enough when you want it to be flexible, or when you want to make a thicker line. He would drive his car 30 miles an hour only on the maybe 30 to 35. And I said to Wasky, your car can go 5 miles an hour and it can go 80 miles an hour. Let's explore the entire speed limit of the pen that you've got. And I said that out loud to him or something, and one of the people that watched that video scolded me for telling him how to use a pen and how to write with a pen and what's wrong with his handwriting. Another person said, when Wesky and I were testing pens back and forth and showing what we write, Wesky would write a word, I would make swooshes. And this woman commented, seeing Peer's random swirls make me want to lose the will to live, because I was wasting ink and wasting paper and, not doing anything important like writing an actual word. Anyway, I thought that was always fun. Yeah, Wasky is really sweet. He visited me and my brothers at our family home as we were getting ready to sell it. So the house was in complete disarray, but he stayed over maybe 3 or 4 nights. And my brother loves cooking, and we made Wasky, or he made, I didn't do a goddamn thing. See, God damn it, I said it right there twice. He made mussels in wine sauce, and Wasky had never had. And we went sailing on my brother's boat, and Wasky had never been on a sailboat before. And the sailing was what he remembered, what he loved the most, was sailing with my brother on a Lake Minnetonka. And we went we also went sightseeing a little bit. We went to Minnesota History Museum, and we went to St. Paul, where we looked at a bridge, a certain kind of bridge that he likes. And we really got along really, really well, I think. He regretted that we didn't do more pen stuff, or he wanted to see more pens that I had. I only brought about a dozen home with me from Boston, so I didn't have many to show, and I didn't have any to sell. But I think we had a good time. But I like Waskey. He's very honest. What you see is what you get. He loves talking about life in small town North Dakota. He's very happy to share his life, which is really great. Okay. You should do some more writing videos with Pierre. Okay, said Kim. Too much interrupting. Maybe her not to being okay. Then I talk about being in a Marvel movie, and Nick says it's not a big deal being in a Marvel movie these days. He said the handwriting was probably the highlight of the movie. The handwriting I created, their journal that was used by the main character as she's roaming around in the Amazon jungle looking for spiders. And I had to create this journal, the pages of a journal. I wonder who did the writing in Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Then he says, I'll have to ink up the Waterman #2 now. Well, I can't wait to hear what he says about that. I like around 9:40 mark, Pierre was going on how his mom would write with a ballpoint. And this is where, again, Hemingway moved the interview along. I didn't really have anything else to say about the pens that we had lying around the house. I didn't really get into pens until, to the degree that I am, until I was my last year in college. And then I went away for grad school and then moved to Boston after that. So the pens that were lying around the house were not fountain pens. Jess Skyer said, now I want a flex nib on my next pen. Well, I'm happy to sell you one, as long as you live in the United States. I don't want to sell. It's difficult for me to sell pens out of the country because it just takes too long for them to get there. And then when you add duty and customs or whatever the taxes are, they become way too expensive. But you can certainly find a vintage flexible nib in Europe without having to buy one in America. Tasha, haven't seen Tasha in ever. Pierre, I also am the only one with my name on the planet. I don't know who this is. Authentication is the person's name. I don't know what that name is. But I'm the only Pierre Gustafson on the planet, as far as I know. And it's perfectly fun. It's really fun having a unique name until you are trying to explain to someone over the phone what your name is. Oh, Peter? Oh, Pierre. No. Pier, like the thing you tie a boat to. Oh, pear? No. Anyway, so for those of you that have never seen my channel before, I promise most of the time I'm playing with many more pens and I'm making a bigger mess. And sometimes I invite people that are watching me on live next to me, so we have a conversation, or sometimes 2 or 3 people join and we all have a little fun conversation. about pens, and we don't have any sort of a script, so things go off the rails very easily. We talk about politics and art and all sorts of stuff. So my next video that I make, I'll try to perhaps show, maybe I'll select 5 fountain pens that I really like and explain to you the reasons why I really like them. Now, these probably exist already. I know that Appleboom Pens featured me as one of their guest people with 3 fountain pens, and I went into some detail why I like the pens. I mean, oftentimes people on that program will, hold up the pen and say why they like it, and usually, most of the time, it's the way the pen looks without ever putting ink in it. It's the shape of the pen, the size of the pen, the color of the pen, or whatever it is. It's never about how the pen, or rarely is it about how the pen actually works. I'm always talking about what, from this point, not from here to here. You can see that. I don't have to tell you anything about that, but from here out, that's what I'm interested in. What kind of line it makes. How is this line different from the other line that's almost on an identical pen? Well, it might be because the pen is longer. The balance is different in my hand, so I make a different line, or it feels different. That's where I get lost. What rails? There are no rails here. Tasha knows the rules. Tasha, when I started initially doing live broadcasts, I would have usually the same dozen people following me and watching me and commenting, and we got to know each other pretty well. So our talks we had was sort of like we all worked at the same company and we were on our coffee break. We would just catch up with each other, find out, who's happy this week, who's got a new pen. We talk about that. We talk about their family members. So I can see how in some cases some people might not find that fun, but once you learn at that time, once you learn 3 or 4 of the different people that I would talk to each time, it was kind of fun. And we would talk for an hour and a half live. One of my pals who speaks quite often live with me on here is named Todd Merrill, and he knows lots and lots and lots about fountain pens, so he's always correcting me politely. I know you meant to say Walter Schaefer, not William Schaefer. Well, thank you for telling me what his name is. I would never, he knows facts, I don't. And he said, I started watching your video, but why are your videos an hour long? So I invited him on once, and an hour and a half later, he's still talking, along with other people in the room. You lose track of time when you're talking about pens. So it was really fun. So yeah, someone said it was a perfect morning coffee time. I often would do these in the morning, and it was just a nice way to wake up listening to me, or not so much me, but my guests going on and on and on about a thing. So what I'll do, I'll look at the interview again that I had with Hemingway, and see if there's any new comments or questions that people have of me that I can respond to in a different one of these things. And I'll also try, if I can, to respond directly to them in a text thing too, but also invite them to come here and not only watch me and text to me live, but maybe be live side by side. Teresa, would you like to join me now live, or Will Hodge? Can we just try this once? We'll just do a very quick minute-long thing. So, who is their pants on? That's often what I ask some of my guests, because in the morning they still have their pajamas if they don't sleep naked. They usually put on a shirt because the camera is sometimes aiming at their face. Sometimes it's aiming down at their desk. So we just want to make sure that we don't do anything that would be inappropriate. Tasha, would you like to join me live? Who wants to join me live? I'll just send the link and whoever shows up can show up. Will has no shirt and no pants. So Will will leave you off this time. Oh, and Teresa has to work and she does have her pajamas on. No cam at the moment. So we'll just end it now. So we'll talk to you later. Nice meeting all of you new ones. And goodbye.